Today, I'm pleased to have on our show a very special guest, Ashleigh Miller. Ashleigh is a certified executive coach who also specializes in team coaching and team dynamics. She is passionate about the human element in business and believes all business issues stem from people issues. Ashleigh spent the first half of her career working in professional services with Accenture and EY. Her primary focus during that time was expanding market share and business development using techniques related to relationship building, enhanced interpersonal communication, and connecting at a human level. In her coaching, Ashleigh has a unique ability to listen between the lines and get her clients to be vulnerable enough to move through boundaries which impede their success and productivity. So glad to have you here with us today, Ashleigh. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I'm thrilled to be here with you. It's great to see you again.
Great to see you too. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So I'm going to jump right in to learn more about you and your coaching business. What made you decide to move from professional services to executive coaching, since we now know that that's where you spent a bulk of your career?
That's where I landed. Yes, so I always had this sort of sense that I wanted to go into business for myself. But, as I was into my 40s, those golden handcuffs were getting pretty darn tight until the winds of change started to blow at EY, and I was offered the opportunity to leave. So I took that opportunity and thought, this is my chance to start a business of my own. Admittedly, it took me a minute to figure out what that was going to look like and what I wanted to do in the second half of my career, knowing that, I knew that I could make a bigger impact on my own in the world and in the world of business. I just had to figure out what that looked like. So I spent quite a bit of time reflecting, thinking, reading, taking assessments, trying to figure out who I was going to be and how I was going to serve. And then I, looking back over my whole life, just sort of naturally, I was coaching people my whole life, whether it be friends or colleagues. That was just something that people were drawn to me for, and something that I thought I was pretty good at. So I think I found the perfect profession for me.
Well, I certainly feel the same way about my search to land in this profession too. So I can relate to your answer. Mm-hmm. What has been hardest about the transition? I know you've already been in business 3 years, but looking back on that, what was most difficult for you?
Lots of things. I sort of liken it to being launched into space, landing on the moon, and then having like that cord cut, that tether cut. And then all of a sudden you're just sort of spinning around space by yourself with no hope to kind of get grounded. A little bit of a sense of that leaving corporate America, because, you had all these different teams around you, all these different colleagues. I went from 270,000 colleagues to just me. So, I didn't have a marketing department, sales. I didn't have anyone to talk to about what to do. So that was challenging. A little bit of a loss of identity at first, I'd say. Not even realizing, it took me a while to realize that I had my identity tied to that organization. It was sort of, who am I now? How do I reinvent myself? I remember being on a networking Zoom call. This was before COVID, just happened to be on Zoom. And they were, going around the room, introducing everybody. And so it was coming close to my turn to introduce myself, and I froze. I absolutely froze. I said, I don't know who I am. I don't know how to introduce myself. I don't know what I do. And I hung up.
Wow.
And so that was a moment for me to realize, okay, I have a lot more work to do. So there was a lot of self-development and reflection that I went through that was challenging, but good. Mm-hmm. And then in the start, for sure, that imposter syndrome started to sneak in a little bit. But, we worked through it. And I can be here.
You have come so far from that moment of not being so sure, and now you're quite clear. What is the mix of professional services that you're currently offering?
Yeah, so naturally I offer one-on-one executive coaching, which I love. And then I do the team coaching. I do quite a bit of workshops and facilitation around communication skills, leadership skills, business development, teaming. So that's kind of my wheelhouse.
And it's been 3 years now, and I know that you've reached a certain level of success in your business, which is fantastic. And what I'd like to learn about is what has worked for you since launching your practice to create momentum and develop business? Because I know you've tried a lot of different things. You've been very creative and motivated and active. So what have you found has been successful?
I think the biggest thing has been good old-fashioned networking and keeping up, connections with people, staying on people's radar, pretty much telling anyone who will listen what I'm doing with my life now. Because that leads to, for people to trigger and say, oh, well, I should introduce you to so-and-so. So saying yes to every introduction that anyone wants to offer to me has been fantastic. And that includes, friend groups, family, not just my, professional network, which it's been fun to watch expand through making new connections. And then it's just kind of staying in front of those people and making sure that I'm putting stuff on LinkedIn and making sure that, if I find something interesting that I think that they would be interested in, sending an email. So really just that good old fashioned networking and, taking the breakfast, taking the lunch meetings, going to networking events, which obviously came to an abrupt halt there for a while. So, you throw a pandemic in the middle of trying to build a business, and it's not for the faint of heart, but then, certainly, I've found ways to have Zoom work as well. So, going on networking Zoom calls, I take screenshots of everybody who's participating and look them up on LinkedIn afterwards and, see if I can make a connection that way.
Oh, I like that tip, actually, that you put in there right at the end. And one of the things that I want to reiterate that you said that I think is really important is that you took every chance to tell people what you're now doing. Mm-hmm. And I think some coaches hold back from that imposter syndrome that you talked about earlier, or I'm still trying to find my identity. I think they put off telling certain people what they do because they're not sure yet. But I feel like you push through that fear and put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think, Michael, when I decided to start my own business, it wasn't a maybe. It wasn't a let's just try this. It was, I have to make this work. So that helped to push me through some of those very vulnerable moments where, because I was afraid to say sometimes to certain people, what are they going to think? Are they going to think that, who is she now kind of thing? But by and large, people want to help other people, I would say, so I just played a lot of mind tricks to get over that fear and just push through, knowing that it's the only way out. They're not going to come knocking at my door. I got to put myself out there. I can't just sit here on the couch and hope that somebody knocks on the door and says, hey, are you an executive coach? So yeah, I had to just put myself out there.
I like that a lot. What you said about it wasn't a maybe going into business. I felt the same way. I started in 2008. You started just before the pandemic. I started right in the beginning of the Great Recession.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that during tough times, we're forced to dig deeper and really come up with the question, do we really want this? Because it's going to be harder than maybe we imagined it's going to be. And then we realize, we really want it. And so we'll work harder and push harder and talk to maybe 10 more people than we might have had the courage to do. You just keep getting out there.
That's 100% it. And when the pandemic hit, I personally froze. I thought, what in the world does this mean? Reassessing everything as so many other people did. I took to just staying productive, but I couldn't do it. But I decided to paint all of the baseboards and trim in my entire house because I just wanted to do something productive while I was in this sort of mentally stunned state. And during that process, I thought, you know what? Double down. Like, this is the time to double down on making my business work. Like, I will not let this get me.
Yeah. Very interesting. So I want to take you back again to the beginning. If you could go back to the time you started this new career, would you do anything differently?
I think maybe even more networking events. I think, really digging under every rock to find more opportunities to get in front of people. maybe start, because I've been on a journey of self-development and really learning. I maybe would have focused on that even sooner with the intensity that I'm doing it now, because I'm finding it to be amazing. Listening to successful people, what was their formula, finding mentors, other coaches to talk to, which, I mean, I'm so lucky to have several different cohorts of coaches that I stay connected with now that are sort of my family, my cheerleaders, and they're just, I find it to be really inspirational to be connected with them. So.
Right. Very good. Okay. So even more networking. I remember when I first started out, I joined 7 different organizations and was out 2-3 nights a week. And I often look back at that as one of the pivotal drivers of my early business too. It's interesting how our businesses have some parallels.
Yeah.
That I didn't know until we've had this chance to talk some more. So in your introduction, Ashleigh, I mentioned about the fact that you also like to do team coaching and you like to work with teams. There are a lot of coaches who are interested in working with teams, but it's not exactly the same as one-on-one coaching. What advice do you have for newer coaches to prepare to coach teams?
For sure, finding a network of coaches to bounce ideas off of and get support from. I think that's really, really important, as well as having an assessment that you like, that you're certified in, that you can use to present to the team to get to understand who's who in the zoo and what dynamics you're dealing with. I find that to be really powerful up front. Probably the biggest thing, it's important in executive coaching one-on-one as well, but even more so in team coaching, is establishing that trust and rapport as very quickly as possible, because you're essentially a stranger coming into their organization, into their team, and you're only going to be as effective as their ability to be vulnerable and trust you. So figuring out a way to build that trust up front is key, or else they're not going to share with you. They're going to be skeptical, and you're not going to be productive. So with my clients, I tell them that confidentiality is of utmost importance to me. And anything that I do or share with the team is in an effort to help. I will never communicate anything that I think in any way would hinder the team's progress. So I try to really drive that point home.
And that seems to help the team to become more vulnerable and be more open in these conversations.
I have found that that's true. I mean, it's not 100% foolproof, but yeah.
And I had a question recently that I want to throw in. Do you generally coach with the team leader present or not present?
Not. So I tend to evaluate the team and understand what the team issues are, kind of feel out what's happening, and then decide where they might need like a group teach. So sort of a new concept that would help the team as a whole. And so I'll do something for the entire team, and then I'll go off and meet with them individually after that. And then we kind of come back together as a team, work through some things. And it really depends on what the issues are as well. I try to be flexible and bring in whatever is needed for each unique situation.
Right. Great. Well, Ashleigh, we've had a really good conversation, and I've learned a lot about your business and what you've done. I'm so happy to know you and to be able to wish you a happy 3rd anniversary for your business and congratulate you on all the success you've achieved so far. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing some great information with fellow coaches.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So good to see you again. I mean, I couldn't have gotten here without the CEC and all of your help and guidance and mentoring. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a real pleasure.